Hi everybody, this is TJ with Netpicks.com, Inner Circle, and the Spotlight Power Trader. In this week's video, I'm going to do a walkthrough of day trading one of my favorite Forex pairs, the Pound Aussie, and I'm going to show you how it works with the Spotlight Power Trader. We'll take a look at the 3 different sessions each day, and I'll give you some detail about that, and I'll talk to you a little bit about the kind of charts that I think are the best to use for this style of trading. Before I do, I want to review last week's trade of the week. If you have not heard, we are posting a trade of the week, and that's a trade where you're going to be able to either follow along, learn from it. Some of you might even trade it. We're going to give you all the details of the trade. You can check at our Netpicks Trader Tips blog to follow up with them and to see other trades of the week. So I want to encourage you to check back often. You can see the link in the text with this video. Last week, let me just put this chart back. It was right around here. There was a trade that had triggered in for the US CAD. This is a daily chart, and you can see here in the data window the entire trade, the entry at 26.36, the stop at 21.88, the various targets here. You could take a look. 32.86, 36.08, 46.07, 54.77. And the trade had triggered in. It had come down a little bit. This is a long trade. And we had the chance to take it again. And it did come up and hit the entry after I posted this trade last week. So this is called getting in sync with an active trade. The first objective is to get to this little dot right here. Hopefully you guys can see that. That's what we call our money management level. And when we get to that dot, the stop, which is down here, will move up to lock in a little bit of profit and take the risk off the trade. Okay, so this trade is actively going. It's made some good progress heading in that direction. These trades take time. And to get more details on this, you can visit the blog. So we'll keep monitoring this trade, and we'll be posting some new trades. So make sure you check in as often as you'd like. Okay, so let's get into the recap this week of the Pound Aussie. Again, this is a Spotlight Power Trader. And you'll notice, first of all, that we're using momentum range bars. So MT4 traders, you know, that's a fine platform, but you're kind of stuck with time-based charts. So I prefer using a more capable platform like either TradeStation or NinjaTrader. TradeStation is not a Forex broker. You can place these trades with any broker you want. You just take the trades off of the TradeStation charts. Or again, NinjaTrader is a good choice. But the reason why is because dynamic charts are just more effective with this strategy, Spotlight Power Trader. And so I would encourage you to maybe consider using a platform that can trade these charts in. As I walk through this example, you'll see why I like them so much. The goals of the Spotlight Power Trader are quite simple. For day traders, it is to be able to quit with a positive result a majority of your sessions while controlling your drawdown with minimal and efficient trading. Okay, so it's very important we stick to the goals. As far as the trade plan goes, we have a very specific start time. For the Asian session, we can start at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for this trade plan, or 1800. And that one can go as long as you'd like. It typically is going to end by the time you get to the European session, which would be 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time. And that European session will go from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. And then the U.S. session begins at 8:30 a.m. and will go until noon. Okay. Now, if there's a trade that's still going, obviously you have to hold it and even beyond the stop time. But those ending times is when we stop looking for new setups. Okay. We're trying to hit our goals right away, and if we do with the very first trade, we're going to be finished. So the goal is to quit with that positive result. We're going to take off a percentage of our trade at each of our 4 targets and then leave a little left to trail. But we're not going to be interested in any target that's less than 10 pips. So 10 pips is the very minimum target that we'll be scaling out at. If we have a target that's less than 10 pips, we take that part of the trade off at the next target. Okay, so There's a few other little nuances that I'll explain as we go, especially, what happens if you have a stop and reversal, and what do we do with key level adjustments, okay? So we'll get into that as I go through this walkthrough. So let's get started. This is on the 19th. The 19th was a holiday in the U.S., the 19th of February, President's Day weekend, but Forex is still active, so we'll just see what happens starting in the European session. And you can see right here at 2:46 a.m., the first trade shows up. One of the things we love about Spotlight is part of its name, Spotlight. It means that it shines a spotlight on the best setups. So we don't try to catch every move. Here's a move down. We're waiting until our first trade of the day, which is right here. Okay, and we'll pick up the Asian session going forward. All right, so here we go. The long trade, you can see the setup here at 76.28. The stop is down here. You got your various targets, and it pretty straightforward here. And right away, we have a possible short and a possible stop and reversal. So let me explain to you how we do these stop and reversals. It's a very simple philosophy. What we're going to try to do is protect the trade we're in, but we have to respect the fact that the market could be turning and going the other direction. See the little plus sign? That's an entry. Okay, if it's below the dotted line, it's a short. If it's above, it's a long. So here we're in a long. There's a possible short right here. So the way we protect the trade we're in is we're going to ask for a little more price confirmation. In other words, we don't want to get short right at this entry. We're going to add 2 more pips, or in this case, subtract 2 more pips from the entry. And then if we're 1 pip within a multiple of 5, like a 7625 or 7620, for example, we're going to adjust 1 more pip beyond it. So you can see the entry here is 7623. We take away 2 pips and it's going to be 7621, right? So we're going to adjust the 21 down to 7619. 1 pip below the multiple of 5 on the price quote. So we're going to do that the same way every time. What we're asking for is extra price confirmation to give us a little more assurance the price wants to go lower. Otherwise, we want to stay in the long trade, protect the trade we're in, but still acknowledge the fact that the market could go down. Okay, so that's our concept. And it does stab through. I put the line here where the entry, the adjusted entry would be, and it doesn't get there. Instead, it goes up again. Of course, the calculator doesn't know, and the colors are changing because red means short. It thinks it's short. But we know we're long. So as traders, sometimes we have to look past the dots and just stay with the basic strategy and the rules of the trade plan. Okay, so it's very important. You learn this in training, you practice it, and it becomes second nature after some repetition. So look what happens. It comes up and it hits the money management level. So at that point, we want to move our stop from here and start trailing this dotted line. So it goes to about here. Okay, so we have a risk-free trade, and that first target is good for 20 pips. And that would be a winning session if we can get there, and it does. So the first session is going to be a winning session, and it's a winning trade, and our minimum goals are met, but it keeps going, comes all the way up and hits another target for 31 pips. So we could take 20% off here for 20 pips, 31 pips. The trailer is moving higher, and it continues to move higher, and so does the price as it comes up and hits target 3. Target 3 is good for 42 pips. And it continues to go higher, and it hits target 4, which is good for 53 pips, continuing to trade and trail up, and the trailer keeps going until here. Now, this is a great example of what I'm talking about. Protect the trade we're in, respect the fact the market could be turning. Now, if it were to turn and come down, imagine that, that's not always a bad situation either, because instead of taking a full loss on the long trade, we'd cut that loss nearly in half, maybe more, maybe a little less, but we cut the loss and then get on what could be the winning trade down, and we hit our goals with 2 trades. And that happens sometimes. But in this case, the strategy worked great. The trade plan goals and the rules kept us in the long trade for this beautiful long. All right, so let's go to the U.S. session. All right, so the U.S. session starts at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, and it's already 8:30 right in here. It's already in a long trade. We just wait for a new setup, and there's a short now at 8:46, and we know it's a short because the entry is below the green dotted line, and we could see the color, right? So 77.38 is the entry. You see our targets. Everything's clear. The whole trade is planned. We know what we're going to do every step of the way. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, and our goals for the session are instantly met. Well, maybe not instantly. It took about 15 minutes to get to target 1. That was good for 18 pips. The trailer is going to start moving down to take the risk off the trade, you see. And then, of course, we stay in the trade, but it pops up and stops out. Couldn't quite get to target 2, but our minimum goals were met. It's a winning session, and we're done. Remember the goals: quit with a positive result with minimal trading so that we can control our drawdowns. Like this, we can grow our account, and as our account grows, we use the power of compounding to increase our position to a very strict formula that we follow. All this is, again, is taught in training. So let's go to the Asian session. So depending on where you are in the world, this is later in the afternoon. For the U.S. session, those who have to work in the day and want to day trade when they come home, they might want to consider trading this Asian session with some well-selected pairs, the pound Aussie, the euro yen, maybe a few others using this exact same approach. So we're looking for 1800 as our start time, Eastern Standard Time. And there's a trade right there on the right edge of the chart at 19:30. So it's like 7:30 in the evening. And it gets short right there. Look at the trade. If we can get to target 1, that's our minimum goal of 13 pips. And it does. It gets to target 1. Same thing. Stop moves down. Starts cutting the risk. As you can see, hitting target 2. Hitting target 3 perfectly. Look how perfect that is at target 3 for 29 pips. You can see 13 pips, 21 pips, 29 pips. You're able to scale out, and then the stop protects us when the market starts moving higher, and the Asian session hits its goals with the very first trade. All right, so now we're on the 20th, and we're going to go to the European session. All right, so we're waiting for our 2 a.m. start time, and it's gray. Remember, Spotlight's not trying to catch every single move. It's just looking for the very specific setups that put the odds firmly on our side. And like this, we grow our equity. The first trade is a short. It's at 3 in the morning. Got to be patient. Remember, between 2 and 5 a.m. is the session time for the European session. Gets short at 78.07. You can see the profit potential for each of these targets. The minimum goal is target 1. It gets there. It's good for 17 pips. And the basic goals of this session are achieved. We are going to quit with another positive result. It's just a matter of finishing the trade. Another percentage comes off for 27 pips at target 2, 37 pips at target 3. The trailer's starting to move lower, and it's still going. Can't quite get to target 4. Gets to like 3 and 3/4. It almost gets to target 4. Really nice trade, then stops out right here. And the European session, another winning session, very efficient. Let's go check out the U.S. session for the 21st. All right, so we're waiting for our 8:30 start time. And you could see, still waiting. Notice that our start time kept us out of all this choppy price action. We don't try to trade all the time. We are looking for the most opportune time. These trade plans have been tested for these start times to see if they could achieve the goals that I stated earlier in the video. So we're not interested in other trades. There's too much randomness, right? We control the randomness of wins and losses by using these trades within the context of well-tested trade plans. Then we can get measurable results and determine that the odds are on our side as long as we stick to the plan. So there's a long trade right here. There's actually a setup, and then it's replaced by a new setup. So it's a little bit odd that there's two setups in a row, but you can see it never triggered into the first one. You just take the second one. It's at 9:30 in the morning, so you have to wait an hour before it finally sets up. But look, patient traders are rewarded. This trade plan is a really good one, and it works. It gets to that initial goal of target 1 for 14 pips. Now we have a risk-free trade for the rest of the position. The trailer's going up and it just blows through all 4 targets. You could just see what those are. 14, 22, 39, 30, and 39 pips, and still trailing. And another session, look at that, finally stops out up here. First trade of the US session, meets the goals. We're finished. Let's go to the next Asian session. All right, so here we are later in the day. Depending on, of course, where you are in the morning, it could be the next day. But it's 1800 New York time. It's flat. You can see the gray bars. We're waiting for a session, and we get a long trade right here at 19:44 p.m. Triggers in. Gets long at 78.36. You got the whole trade here in front of you. You know what to do. There's nothing new. Looks like it's moving in our direction. And still hasn't really gained enough traction and is starting to cave in and go the other way. And we just experienced our first losing trade of the week. And that's a losing trade. I mean, it is what it is. It's not going to win 100% of the time, but we don't need it to. We only need to quit our sessions a majority of the time while controlling our drawdown. So the first trade of the Asian session loses 22 pips. We're going to keep looking for trades until the European session starts. And there is a trade here, but it is the start of the European session at 2 a.m. So only one trade during this Asian session. It's a losing session. So now we get into the European session. Long at 78.01. Does trigger in. And it looks like by that line I drew, we might have a stop and reverse coming up, and we do. So there's a stop and reverse, and remember what we do. The entry's at 77.92. We subtract 2 pips from the short entry, so it would be at 77.90, and then 1 pip off of that multiple of 5, right? 77.90. Adjust the entry down to 77.89, and that's where I drew my line, 89. Some traders might adjust it a little below this level here because of the spike down. It shows you some near-term support, but that makes, a 5 or 6 pip adjustment, and to me that's just too much. So I typically won't do that unless this yellow trade is larger, okay? These are just little nuances, but look what happens. The price stabs down, but if you look at the quote, it stabs down to 77.893, and by 0.3 of a pip, it doesn't hit the entry and stays long. You see? This is why we do these maneuvers. We've been doing it this way for a very long time. It works pretty well. Nothing's perfect, but it works well enough that we can keep achieving our goals of the strategy, you see? And it stabs up, hits that target 1 for 14 pips. That's our minimal goal. We're ignoring everything else in here. We don't need to worry about that. We're long from here. Hits the 14 pips. We want to move our stop up and take the risk off the trade. And then it stabs down and stops out. That's it. It only got to target 1, but we're quitting positive. The goals of the strategy are achieved. That's it. We're done. Let's go to the US session. You see, part of our goal is to be able to take what the market wants to give us, not what we personally want from the market. I wish we can take what we wanted from the market, but then the world would be utopia. You cannot have a market that trades without risk. The government's just going to come in and make it illegal. They're not just going to let us print money. So we have to assume some risk. So we have to, of course, use rules that put the odds in our favor. And that's what you can see. It's working. It's what we do with this strategy. The Spotlight Power Trader is very good at this. So let's see. We're going for 830. It's all flat. Gray means flat. And we finally get a long trade here. Turns green. You can see the trade, 7778. It's at 9:25 in the morning on the 22nd. We're getting near the end of the week. And it stabs up and it hits target 1. But look at target 1. It's 80 ticks. That's 8 pips. Remember what I said, that we ignore targets that are less than 10 pips? So we're still in the trade, and the stop doesn't move. In fact, the little dot is up here. We're going to have to get to target 2 for our minimum goal on this trade. You see? So we just stay with our rules, and this one's not going to work. It's going to stop out. So that's our first losing trade during the US session. But we could still take more trades because we could look for trades until noon. So we missed the move down. That's okay. We're just going to be patient. Spotlight didn't have the setup that puts the odds on our side, and price action does what it does. So we're still waiting, just not quite getting the setup. There's a short right here, but it's after 12 noon. So there was only one trade, and we finally witnessed a losing session during the US. So we've had one losing session during the Asian session, one losing session during the US session. Everything else has been basically one and done, pretty much, hitting our goals. So let's go to the next session. So we're looking at the Asian session here, and we get a short right there. This is at later in the evening at 20:49. And then we get a stop and reversal. And the stop and reversal comes up and starts hitting targets. So we get short at 78.03, and the stop is up at 78.31, right? But we end up with a stop and reversal at 78.16. We put our 2-pip adjustment, which puts it long at 78.18. And we don't have to adjust up to 21. If it was at 78.19, we'd adjust up to 78.21. At 78.18, we don't do that. We just flip over at 78.18 here. And so right here, we get long. But notice that instead of getting a full loss, we're only taking a partial loss on the first trade. So that helps us get to our goals, because then on the long trade, comes up, it's target 1, it's target 2. Look at target 3. Doesn't get much more perfect than that, right? And then it comes off and stops out right here. And this ends up quite nicely. So 2 trades to hit our goals during the Asian session. But you can see protecting the trade we're in, but respecting the fact the market might turn. The extra price confirmation flips us over, reduces the loss on the first trade dramatically, and puts us on the winning side of the move. It's exactly how we want to do it. Let's go to the next session. Finally, there's a long trade at 2:38 in the morning. It gets long, 78.26. And this one's going to stop out and lose and then get short. Okay, the entry happens to be at the full loss. So that one loses 17 pips, plus or minus some spread. And then there's another losing trade. So we haven't seen this yet. This could happen once in a while. This is a European session. So far, we've won every European session till today, and there's a couple losing trades. Are there any more trades before the end? We just have to see. We go to 5 a.m. There's a setup there at 4 in the morning. So there's a third trade right there, and that one loses. So not the best session. We actually have 3 losses in a row. And then there's finally one more trade at 4:51. And that one is a pretty big winner. And it undoes some of the damage of those first 3 trades, as you can see. Because you're going to be hitting some really nice targets and trailing all the way down and then stopping out. So, I mean, I'm going to just call it a losing session, though it's possible that this might have gotten pretty close to break even. Okay, but we'll just say that it's a losing session just because the video's getting long and I need to finish this up. So that's okay. Let's go to the US session starting at 8:30. And there it is at 8:30. Now, there could be news coming out. If there is, you just wait 5 minutes and then you get long. And so you could see that here's 8:37, 8:39. Plenty of time to get long in here. And we have to ignore the first 2 targets. So we're going to target 3 and target 4 and then trailing. And it gets through all 4 targets. And the US session is a success before it stops out right up in here. So if we just quickly recap, the goal is to quit positive most of the time. We're looking to quit positive 75% of our sessions. We could accept a break-even session maybe 2 to 6% of the time, and we're willing to accept a losing session anywhere from 15 to 20% of the time. When you look at a lot of trades in this trade plan, a lot of sessions. And like this, we can grow our equity and achieve our financial goals. I mean, that's a winning business, trading business plan. And you could see that in each one of these sessions, we won nearly every one. There was one losing session in the Euro, the Asian, and the US this week. Everything else was winners and very efficient. That's the Spotlight Power Trader, guys. That's a recap of the Pound Aussie. I want to encourage you to check back for future recaps, and also you could look at past recaps. Last week I did one on 2 weeks of the Dow E-mini in February. February has been a wild ride, and I walked through the Dow E-mini. Looks a lot like this because we don't do a lot of things differently. There's one thing about the Spotlight is that we have the same goals. We treat every chart the same way, so you don't have to keep relearning things. You learn the skill once, and it serves you well for a lifetime. That's the whole idea anyway. So this is TJ with Netpicks in the Inner Circle. I hope you enjoyed this recap of the Pound Aussie, and I hope to see you again on the next video.